Robotic human surrogates combine the durability of a machine with the grace and beauty of the human body.
Now, Surrogates is another film which presents a vision of the future where we can live out our lives in alternative, better bodies, not big blue cat-faced creatures this time, but perfect versions of ourselves. This gives Bruce Willis two roles, a wrinkly, worn-out cop and himself 20 years younger, where he runs around saving the world under a toupee.
With most people living their lives through their surrogate selves, our world has become a safer place.
Now, this movie is one of the first in a new wave of futuristic films from 2012 to The Road, and it looks like, again, Hollywood is obsessed with predicting the future. But is that good for film fans? Aubrey, I'll start with you. What does Surrogates bring to this genre?
I think underpinning nearly all sci-fi futuristic movies is a sense of dread about what may happen, how things may spiral out of control. And I think with Surrogates, the element of society that they're focusing on is the internet. 20 years ago, if you hadn't seen someone for a while, the only way to rectify that pretty much was to go and meet them. Now, because of, you know, Facebook and the likes, you can go years. Why bother go out at all? I'll just send out my kind of avatar, surrogate, whatever they're calling it. I'll just send that out, that perfect version of me. That can do all my interaction, and I'll, you know, have a snooze.
But we are, as I say, mentioning some of these kind of more gloomy apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic films. I mean, why do you think, Rosie, they've turned up all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, actually. Some of the ones we've got coming up are pretty grim views of the future. You've got 2012 coming up quite soon, which is based on this kind of Mayan myth about the end of the world.
The Mayans knew about it.
If you've seen the trailer, it's incredibly spectacular, but it's kind of everything getting trashed. You've got Book of Eli, I think that's early next year. Again, very grim, very grey, bleak look. And then The Road, which is the one which I'm probably most looking forward to.
Are we gonna die?
They're not gonna quit.
I don't know, I guess it's a way for people to maybe safely play out their fears or things that are worried about, perhaps.
But I would argue this whole sort of doomy post-apocalyptic thing, I think there is a lot of it at the moment, maybe after 9/11, you know, all of that. But I think it's always been there in cinema. I think in the 70s, again, you had, like, Escape from New York, you had Mad Max. I think these films have always been there. We've always had a fascination with it.
But this is the thing. Why aren't films that are mainstream, big movies, a sort of happy distraction from people's worries, like musicals? Why do we have to kind of confront this stuff in our leisure time at the cinema? You'd think people would have had enough of being worried about the world.
I think that's a very big question, probably too big for us to debate right now.
Well, have a go.
In terms of, yeah, but in terms of, obviously, cinema is an entertainment, and people do go to a cinema to be entertained. They have a blast of 2 hours where they forget their woes. But obviously, another thing cinema can do is it can confront these fears and it can work it through. So I think there's many things cinema can do.
I think what's interesting, though, is that we're talking about futuristic movies. All these kind of predictions of the future are always coloured by our current concerns. But I think what's interesting is how rarely they stand the test of time. You look at futuristic movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're now, of course, all incredibly dated, and with very few exceptions do they ever actually get anything right.
But maybe I was just thinking that maybe it's kind of a deliberate thing, because you've got all these things that are going on now, these things that people are frightened of, and the terrorism and the environmental issues, and you don't want to look that in the face. You don't want to say, gosh, this is happening around me.
Right,
so you set it 30 years in the future, you make everyone ride on hoverboards and wear silver outfits, and you say, yeah, it's not yet, but really you're saying, no, have a look at what's going on. Yeah. So maybe that's why a lot of these don't stand up, because they're not meant to.
Finally, listen, do you think we'll get robots right? I mean, in the future movies, they just do everything for us, don't they, really?
Robots who think they're people.
And then they start to think they're people, and then there will be a judgment day, and then it will all backfire.
And they'll also play all your MP3s, so, you know.
That's right.
I think that futuristic movies will continue to be fantastical rather than accurate, and I've no problem with that.